Today, I want to tell you about something that happened in Georgia on a summer night in 2022, July 26 to be exact, 9:46 in the evening. A security camera at a community center caught what looked like nothing special, a 16-year-old girl named Susana Morales standing there talking to a police officer just a few hundred feet from her own front door. She had no idea she was being recorded, and she had no damn idea that this would be the very last time anybody would see her breathing. What went down in the next few minutes would destroy a family, expose a sick predator who'd been hiding behind his badge, and show us that sometimes the people who swore to serve and protect are the exact ones we need to be running from. Because whoever snatched Susana that night wasn't some random creep hiding in the bushes. This was somebody the whole neighborhood trusted. Somebody who drove around in a patrol car. Somebody with a uniform, a gun, and the authority to do whatever the hell he wanted. This is how a police officer turned into a cold-blooded killer. Hi, sweet ones. My name is Grandma Kitty, and before we dive in, take a second to subscribe if cases like this intrigue you. It helps me keep these stories coming, and while you're at it, tell me where you're watching from. That's how we find our neighbors here in our little true crime corner. Earlier that day, Susana Morales had done what any 16-year-old would do on a summer evening. She told her mama she was going to visit one friend, then changed her mind and went to see another instead. This girl with the bright smile and love for singing had spent her evening at Sterling Glen Apartments, a complex in Norcross, Georgia, just outside Atlanta. Susana was the baby of her family, adored by everyone who knew her. She spent hours practicing makeup tutorials in her room, had recently picked up the ukulele, and filled that house with her singing voice. Her mother would later say that Susana's music made their home feel alive with joy. But what her family didn't know was that someone had already been watching her. Someone who would use this ordinary Tuesday evening to destroy everything they held dear. That night seemed no different from countless others, but the devil was already making his plans. Around 10 o'clock that evening, Susana began her walk home, a short trek of maybe half a mile along roads she knew like the back of her hand. Her phone had that Life 360 tracking app on it, showing her location in real time to family members who just wanted to keep their baby girl safe. But safety was about to become nothing but an illusion. At exactly 9:46, that community center camera caught Susana walking along the roadside. She looked calm, unhurried, just a teenager heading home after spending time with friends. She had no idea that predatory eyes were tracking her every single step. What happened next would puzzle investigators for months, and when they finally figured it out, it would make your blood run cold. Susana's phone showed her getting close to home, getting close to where she should have felt safest. Her family was watching that familiar blue dot on their screens, seeing it move toward their street like it had hundreds of times before. Then that dot started moving in the wrong damn direction. At first, it seemed normal, walking speed. Maybe she forgot something, maybe she decided to take a different route. But then something impossible happened. According to the GPS, Susana was suddenly traveling at 40 miles per hour. She didn't drive, she didn't have a car, and nobody in her family was supposed to pick her up. A text message appeared on her phone, "I'm on my way home." But Susana never made it to that front door. Instead, her phone kept moving at high speed, taking her away from safety, away from home, away from everything she knew and loved. At 10:30, one of her friends got a crash alert from that Life 360 app. The phone had stopped moving, and honey, it would never move again. But while Susana's family was out there searching the streets and calling her name, someone else was going about his evening routine like nothing had happened. Someone who was about to prove that the most dangerous predators are the ones wearing uniforms. Just a few miles away at Sterling Glen Apartments, a 22-year-old police officer named Bryant was settling in for the night. Bryant worked as a courtesy officer at that complex, a sweet deal that gave him reduced rent in exchange for patrolling the property and keeping residents safe. He was also a sworn officer with the Doraville Police Department and served in the National Guard. To his neighbors, his colleagues, his supervisors, Miles Bryant looked like everything law enforcement should represent. Dedicated, conscientious, always ready to help. But looks can be more deceiving than the devil himself. The next morning, July 27th, Bryant contacted police with a real concerning report. His service weapon, a Glock 19 pistol, had been stolen from his vehicle. Someone broke into his truck overnight, he claimed, taking his holster and gun while leaving everything else completely untouched. Now, let me ask you something. What are the odds that a police officer's gun gets stolen the very night a teenage girl disappears from the apartment complex where he works? And what kind of thief takes a gun but leaves everything else behind? But this was just the beginning of Miles Bryant's lies, and honey, they were about to get a whole lot worse. For Susana's family, the next 6 months were a living hell of not knowing. Tips poured in from all over the country. People thought they saw her in Detroit, Nashville, Gatlinburg. Every lead brought hope, then crushing disappointment when investigations turned up absolutely nothing. Police deployed drones, thermal imaging, aerial surveillance. They ran undercover operations, worried sick that Susana might have been taken into human trafficking networks. Every resource got exhausted, every possibility explored. Her mother, Aura Morales, faced the worst kind of torture a parent can endure, not knowing if her baby was dead or alive, suffering somewhere, trying to come home. It's the worst possible thing to not have closure, investigators would say later. I think my daughter may be alive. I hope she's alive, but I don't know. And through all those 6 months of pure agony, Miles Bryant kept right on with his duties as courtesy officer and police officer. He patrolled Sterling Glen Apartments, the very place where Susana was last seen alive. He carried himself with that same professional attitude that had earned him respect from everyone around him. Not a single soul suspected that the person helping search for this missing girl was the exact same person who knew precisely where she was. But the truth has a way of crawling out of the darkness, no matter how deep you try to bury it. February 6, 2023, 6 o'clock in the evening, an off-road enthusiast was exploring some remote areas near Drowning Creek Road and Highway 316 in Decatur, Georgia, more than 20 miles from where Susana had disappeared. What he found in those woods changed everything. Susana's remains tragically decomposed, scattered across that forest floor. No clothing, no fibers, no forensic evidence left behind. Just the cruel evidence of time passed in the Georgia wilderness. The medical examiner would later say that about 95% of her remains were recovered, but several parts were missing. Without soft tissue, determining how she died proved damn near impossible. But the lack of clothing told them everything they needed to know. People don't just die naked in remote woods without some criminal involvement. For investigators, finding Susana was both heartbreaking and challenging. They finally had answers for her family, but they also had a homicide case with precious little physical evidence to work with. That's when they made a discovery that would crack this case wide open. About 100 feet from Susana's remains, investigators found something that had no business being there, a Glock 19 pistol just sitting on that forest floor. It hadn't been buried or hidden. It looked like somebody had just dropped it and forgot all about it. When they ran that serial number, the results knocked them flat on their backs. This was the exact same weapon Miles Bryant had reported stolen on July 27th, the day after Susana disappeared. The same gun that had supposedly been taken from his truck by unknown criminals was now sitting in the woods where a murdered teenager had been found. The odds of that being some kind of coincidence were about as likely as snow falling in hell. Y'all better smash that like button because what investigators found next is going to blow your mind and show you just how deep this officer's lies really went. Investigators immediately focused on that courtesy officer who had seemed so helpful, so concerned, so professional throughout the search for Susana. They were about to discover that Miles Bryant had been playing an elaborate game of deception from the very damn beginning. Detective Carter approached Bryant real carefully. They needed him to talk, to explain this inexplicable connection between his weapon and that crime scene. But they also had to be smart about it. Revealing too much too soon could make him clam up entirely. Bryant agreed to come to the station for what he thought was just a routine interview about his role as courtesy officer. He had no idea that investigators had already started unraveling his carefully constructed web of lies. "We're literally talking to everyone here," Detective Carter explained real casual-like. "We're just trying to document everything. We got no leads, man. Hopefully, with you being in the know, with everything going on at the complex, we can maybe put some pieces together." Bryant played his part perfectly at first. He suggested all kinds of theories about who might have taken Susana: gang members, transients, suspicious characters who hung around the apartment complex. He seemed eager to help, concerned about that missing girl, frustrated by the lack of progress. But investigators were watching for something else entirely. Those subtle signs that would show when Bryant shifted from helpful witness to desperate suspect. While Bryant was maintaining his mask of innocence, Detective Carter was methodically analyzing phone records that would destroy every single lie this officer had told. Bryant carried two phones, his personal device and a work phone issued by the Doraville Police Department. Both phones created digital footprints that could be tracked through cell tower data, painting a precise picture of his movements on the night Susana disappeared. What investigators found was absolutely devastating to Bryant's claims of innocence. Between 1 and 2 in the morning on July 27th, just hours after Susana vanished, Bryant's phones were actively making calls from cell towers located near Highway 316 in Decatur, the exact same stretch of woods where Susana's body would be discovered 6 months later. Bryant had told investigators he spent that night driving around after arguing with his girlfriend, never once mentioning any trip to remote woods 20 miles away. But phone records don't lie, and his device was in the exact location where that murdered girl's remains would later be found. When confronted with this evidence, Bryant's carefully maintained composure started cracking like cheap paint. "Listen to me," Detective Carter said, his voice steady but firm. "Your device was the only one out there. She went missing. She died there. Your gun is there. Your phone is there. This is your moment to talk about it." For the first time, Miles Bryant looked genuinely rattled. That helpful courtesy officer mask dropped away, revealing something much darker underneath. "This is terrible," he whispered. "Maybe we're monsters." "Oh, hell no. Prove it wrong." But the evidence was overwhelming. Bryant's own digital footprint had placed him at that crime scene. His weapon was found near the victim's remains. His story about the stolen gun fell apart under scrutiny. Most damning of all, investigators discovered that Bryant had lied about never having seen Susana before. Witness testimony revealed that he had actually approached Susana and her friends previously, offering them rides in his black truck, encounters he had steadfastly denied during questioning. But investigators weren't done digging. As they looked deeper into Bryant's background, a disturbing pattern emerged that would chill you to the bone. This helpful police officer had been living a double life for years, preying on vulnerable women while hiding behind his uniform and position of trust. Dating back to 2018, Bryant had begun burglarizing homes belonging to his high school classmates, specifically targeting young women. He would steal private items, personal belongings, anything that satisfied his twisted compulsions. Even after Susana's murder, his behavior escalated. Surveillance footage showed him attempting to break into a young woman's apartment while wearing his National Guard fatigues, trying to force open her door despite her obvious fear and resistance. During searches of his digital devices, investigators found evidence that he had been using women's phones to send explicit content to himself, a violation of privacy that revealed his predatory mindset. The evidence painted a picture of someone who had been building toward violence for years, someone who used his authority and access to target victims who trusted his badge. June 5th, 2024, almost 2 years after Susana Morales was taken from her family, Miles Bryant faced a jury of his peers in a Georgia courtroom. He was supposed to serve and protect, the prosecutor told those jurors during opening arguments. He is one of the people that we should trust to enforce the law, somebody we should hold to a higher standard. But he didn't do any of those things. Instead, he abused the law, and he used his badge, and he used his position to satisfy his own predatory impulses. The prosecution's case was built on circumstantial evidence, but it was overwhelming in its totality. Phone records placed Bryant at that crime scene. His weapon was found near the victim's remains. Witness testimony proved he had lied about never encountering Susana before. Most powerfully, they presented evidence of his pattern of predatory behavior, the burglaries, the attempted break-ins, the escalating violence that had culminated in murder. He is a cop who turned into a killer, prosecutors argued. The defense faced an uphill battle steeper than Mount Everest. Their strategy focused on the lack of direct physical evidence, no DNA linking Bryant to Susana, no definitive cause of death, no eyewitness to the actual crime. You don't have to like my client, the defense attorney admitted to jurors. And in fact, at the conclusion of this trial, you're going to think that he is the most callous, uncaring coward that you have ever seen. However, he is not guilty. They suggested alternative theories. Perhaps Susana had overdosed. Perhaps she had been killed by someone else who coincidentally dumped her body near Bryant's gun. But these theories lacked evidence and credibility. After just 2 hours of deliberation, that jury returned with their verdict. Count 1, malice murder. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Count 2, felony murder. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Kidnapping. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Miles Bryant was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The jury had seen through his lies and recognized him for what he truly was, a predator who had used his badge as a hunting license. For Susana's family, that verdict brought some measure of justice, but it could never bring back their beloved daughter and sister. I knew at that moment that we got him, Detective Carter reflected. We had done our job. No one's above the law, and he got what he deserved. The murder of Susana Morales exposed uncomfortable truths about predators who hide behind positions of authority. Miles Bryant wasn't some shadowy stranger lurking in dark alleys. He was someone the community trusted, someone who wore a uniform and carried a badge, someone who had sworn an oath to protect and serve. His crimes remind us that evil can wear any face, carry any credentials, and hide behind any institution. The very qualities that should make someone trustworthy, authority, access, community, respect, can become weapons in the hands of those who abuse them. Susana should be alive today, pursuing her dreams, making music, bringing joy to her family. Instead, she became a victim of someone who perverted everything his badge was supposed to represent. But her memory lives on. A bright light that was extinguished too soon, but never forgotten by those who loved her or by the investigators who fought to bring her killer to justice. Miles Bryant will spend every remaining day of his life behind bars, exactly where he belongs. And that's the only justice we can give to sweet Susana Morales.